we have a few more minutes here, but do you use your understanding of Christ when you're training leaders at potential companies?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. I can't
Yeah.
not, right? It's not explicit though. I don't hide it, but it's not explicit. Like I don't walk in there and say, okay, if you're not a Christian, please leave. There's very much an emphasis on the values of the company. That's usually where I begin. So, let me first say I also train leadership. Leadership is one of the courses I present at work, and it's probably my favorite course. And we talk about these different theories of leadership, right? So you've got like the great man theory, the trait theory, contingency theory of leadership, and then you also get servant leadership, which I'll maybe touch on in a second, and we can maybe explore that a little bit. So in terms of like leadership, I always start with kind of vision, mission, and values. And I'll give you just a brief summary of the way I explain this to my classes. I'll always say, okay, what's the most important of these three? Which one is the best? The vision, the mission, or the values? And it's a trick question. And some people say, okay, vision's most important, because if you don't know where you're going, long-term goal, long-term vision, how are you going to get there? But other people say, no, well, the mission's most important because, well, okay, it doesn't help if I know where I'm going, but I don't know what to do today in the short term that's going to get me one step closer to that long-term vision. And then other people say, no, well, values are the most important. What's interesting to notice is when I ask you that question, which of these three is the most important, you're already making a value judgment. I'm asking you, which one of these three options do you think is the most valuable? And you're using your system of value to make that determination. So the values are fundamental. It's this idea, it's not another brick in the wall, it's the foundation upon which the wall is built. So which value do we have to have? Well, not to sound incredibly Christian, but to do so at the same time, we need honesty. I cannot operate in a working environment if I ask you to do something for me and you say it's done and you're lying. We just can't operate that way. Things will collapse. It might not happen immediately, but they completely will. And it doesn't end there because the sin kind of starts manifesting itself in different ways. So once the honesty is gone, the next thing that goes is the trust. Because I can't build trust with somebody that I don't believe. And you can't build trust with somebody if you're keeping secrets. That means you already don't trust that person. And then you have an inverse of communication. You have a sort of shadow side of communication that props its head up, which is gossip, which is negative communication that starts to emerge. And it's a consequence of that lack of trust, which is a consequence of that lack of honesty. So I tell clients, I actually tell them, I'm not talking morality here, really. I mean, I'm being as practical as potatoes. You simply cannot work with people if you don't know if they're telling you the truth. And pretty much unanimously, I've never had somebody disagree with that. Everybody says, well, yeah, obviously. And so it's obvious to people in a sense that that's what we need, right? So if you want to be a good leader, you have to be honest with people. That's what's going to build trust, and that's what's going to reduce gossip in your team. Now, gossip is always going to be there, unfortunately. It doesn't mean you're a bad manager. It just means you're managing people, right? But there's a certain level of gossip that where things become intolerable. And it's like you said, there's that tension in the room that you can feel, and it's probably manifested itself in gossip already, the core issue that's at the center. So values are really the core, I would say, of leadership. And then, of course, to realize that you have to be the employee that you want your employees to be. You have to embody, again, we get to that idea of the body. You have to embody heaven on earth within your team in that little microcosm. And what's interesting is you mentioned corporations is like the corpse and the body. Well, look at the word organization. Every company is essentially an organization because it's organized around a central principle. But the word organization comes from the word organon, which I'm not sure if it's Greek or Latin, but it means organ. And look at your own body, right? The various organs are doing various very different things, but they all work in unison and they create a healthy body. And it's the same with the company. If the various elements are all geared toward that central vision and that central goal, and the various organs are playing their role, kidneys are doing what they do, the liver's doing what it does, HR is doing what it does, finance does what it does, then the organization, the body, the corporate is healthy. And that begins with where the real organs are, which is our individual relationships and the way we treat each other. So yeah, just to summarize, values are the foundation. Honesty builds trust, reduces gossip. Be the employee you want your staff to be. And what you see in your team is what your team sees in you. And that is responsibility. That's why the manager gets paid more. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? So there's that responsibility and matching authority. As your propensity for personal risk increases, because now if the team fails, it's actually your fault because you're responsible for the team. As your propensity for that increases, as the company gives you more authority, there's also more reward that comes from that. But it must be matched by that responsibility. And that's also what keeps things healthy, which is something we could talk about as well. The kind of asymmetry between responsibility and well, not asymmetry, but the kind of symmetry of responsibility and risk, which we could maybe talk about just now. But yeah, I'm going on and on, but that hopefully that answers your question.
If you'd like to watch another clip from the podcast, you can click here. If you're sold on watching the full interview, you can click here. And if you'd like to do a good deed for the day, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for being here, and peace be with you.